All right, so here we are again with the Paramedical Tattoo Podcast. Now, I just want to tell you guys kind of what my idea was for this before we get into our interview. So I'm Stacie-Rae, and I kind of started the idea. And we had a couple kind of starts, like trying to, where am I going to upload? How are we going to do this? And what I decided I wanted to do last year when I first started kind of pursuing this was I wanted to do a round robin kind of thing where every other week, for now, we can do it every week, but right now I like every other week, somebody interviews somebody else and we try and have a 20-minute interview and we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the solution. But everybody gets to interview somebody else. So the energy and the fun of this podcast is going to be that it's always somebody different, talking to somebody different, about somebody different. And I think this is great. So what happened was I interviewed Kara, and our interview wasn't really that great. She was having some internet connectivity issues. But after I interviewed her, she interviewed Barbara Fox. Then she asked Barbara Fox who she wanted to interview, and that interview is up on my YouTube channel. And Barbara said that she wanted to interview me. However, after 3 attempts, Barbara couldn't find the time to interview me. And I created the space and she didn't. So then it came back to me. And the person I wanted to interview was Nicole. So here I am with Nicole. Now, beyond this is probably going to go out of my hands, I would hope. And who knows where it's going to go? It's kind of like Nancy Drew, choose your own adventure. I'm really looking forward to seeing who interviews who and where it goes. And there's no kind of parameters. However, whoever gets interviewed has to ask somebody else to interview them, and then they become the interviewer. So we do have to kind of keep that thing going. So anyways, welcome Nicole from NMR Medical Tattoo in Long Island, New York. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is so much fun. And yeah, I totally love talking all about paramedical tattooing and totally geek out about all this stuff. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I will. I was looking forward to interviewing you and getting your thoughts on a couple of the topics. So, the Paramedical Tattoo Podcast is going to have a little bit of a structure, and the structure is around the good, the bad, the ugly, and the solution. And we're going to try not to focus too much on the bad or the ugly, but just kind of outline like what we see happening, because most of our conversations that I have with every paramedical artist has to do with how many bad tattoos they're seeing. So I was like, I just like the good, the bad, the ugly. And then, of course, we have to follow it up with a solution. So that being said, the good. My first question for you is, what is your favorite part of doing paramedical tattooing?
Oh, that's a big one because it's like there's so many facets and there's so many little nuggets of joy that you get out of this work. But I think for me, with my own experience and my own um how I got here from my own battle with cancer and not thinking I was going to survive and making a promise to the universe to give my life over basically to help others in some way, shape, or form. And for 12 years, I did that through the OR. And then the last 4 years, I've been doing it through paramedical tattooing. So the gift of actually using my artistic talents again through the art of tattooing while also being able to help people in their lives by doing, areola tattooing. I'm still keeping my promise, but the that connection that I have with them, that one-on-one that you don't really have in the operating room. You're a team member, the patients are don't ever remember you. You're gowned up. They have drugs in them. They're in another world. But that connection that I have with them, the tears that I see and that one-on-one experience with the women that I work with, that's probably the best part of it all. That I still know that I'm keeping my promise to the universe and actually doing really good work for the world, trying to make it better for others.
I love that. I love that you made a promise to the universe. I really identify with that too. Just try and leave the world better than you found it, and at least a little way. But thank you for sharing that. I love that. Okay,
Yeah.
so my next question two, the bad. What is the biggest problem that you see in doing this work? What kind of is the recurring theme that you just wish was a little better?
So the big problem is understanding what tattooing is and who is performing these tattoos on breast cancer survivors. So commonly, it's been for decades now, if a woman loses her nipples and areolas during breast reconstruction, tattoos can be performed to bring back color and shape. But of course, it's been done primarily in doctors' offices where doctors have no training how to tattoo, let alone draw or even know anything an artistic side besides in the surgical field, right? And so they use machines and needles that are not meant for scar tissue. And I find when women come to see me for corrections that there is traumatic scarring in the skin. There is nothing artistically that looks like a nipple tattoo or anything that resembles a nipple at all. And sometimes the damage is so severe because these people have put in their trust in the doctor. And if they say, we'll do it again, we'll do it again, it's faded, we'll do it again. There is a level of scarring in these people's skin that no pigment will ever hold ever again when they come see me. And they lose that opportunity to have that closure that the tattooing can provide as part of their reconstruction journey. And that's probably the big problem is the medical field people performing these tattoos.
Yeah, I agree with that. I am also the recipient of a terribly scarred nipple areola tattoo after my mastectomy, and I got tattooed by a PMU nipple tattoo trainer. So it's
Mm.
not just the medical field that's causing these problems. She destroyed my skin, and I just don't think that I mean, she didn't do it on purpose, like I just think that she didn't really understand how hard it is to tattoo scar tissue. So, what's the effect that you're seeing mostly from this problem? You said a little bit like the survivor doesn't have an opportunity to experience that healing, but tell us a little bit more about the ugly side of it, the effect, the long-term effect.
So I'll start with the physical and then the emotional. So the physical trauma that I'm seeing, I have had women who have had tissue mass loss, meaning that now once their skin at one point could have had normal volume and mass, it has become an atrophic scar. They have lost mass. It looks like it had necrosis at one point, and there is actual divots and craters in this person's skin that could have easily been avoided if understanding proper fundamental tattooing skills and techniques and applied to that. Um, um, Again, a buildup of scar tissue. So the opposite, where there's actually like thickening, white scarring, and then this weird botched looking orangey pigments or purpley weird, like I don't even know what pigments they used in this person's skin, where it could even affect the breast reconstruction and the nipple graft. So the nipple graft could have had a nice protrusion, and now I see scarring within that nipple graft, and that's permanent damage unless they try to have another surgery. So there's actual physical harm being done, which is considered malpractice in the medical world. This could be avoided, but it's continually being perpetuated amongst many survivors in the medical field. This is a big problem. Now, the emotional side that I'm seeing could even be more traumatic than the physical because wounds can heal, tissue can be reworked on, massaging. We've talked about that on the side, but this emotional trauma that impacts them from this is huge, where it has affected people's relationships with their husbands and partners, where they are affected that their daily living is altered, where they will never take their shirt off again. They will never go into a swimming pool and play with their children, that I heard one person talk about how they didn't take their bra off in the shower. It was so bad that they could not emotionally look at themselves in the mirror. They have a full disconnect of their body And that is such a traumatic experience that can take a really long time to heal that part. That again could have been avoided just with someone who understands how to properly work on scar tissue.
Yeah. And how would the survivor know? Like how would she know if she was getting tattooed by somebody who understood that or not? So what do you think the solution is then? What can we do to make it better?
Yeah, so the first thing I think was to talk about it openly. So when I first started doing this type of work, I came into it with some traditional tattooing experience. So I knew the body art world and the artists and that whole environment, which I absolutely love. But when I started doing more medical tattooing, I found that it was kind of dominated by the permanent makeup industry, as well as doctors and nurses doing it on their own. And with the permanent makeup industry, it was very much just do happy vibes, all good stuff. Oh my God, you're doing great work. And then a lot of marketing behind just selling training. And no one was really talking about the effects of like, well, what about scar tissue? Or what about if you have a complication? And there's this thing of, well, no one wanted to talk about the bad side. And there was a lot of bad stuff going on. I even saw nipple tattoos being posted and being celebrated. When in reality, when you look at the photo, you're like, that scar, that tattoo is that's scarred up. It's all red, it's all inflamed. The design, you can see actual cuts in the skin, and it's being celebrated as a great job, well done. There's a problem here. So for me, the big thing was to start talking about it openly, because if you can't talk about it, no one's, that's the first thing, opening up your mouth. So in the medical field, we have a thing that was drilled into our head. If you see something, say something. If you see an error or a mistake that's about to happen, don't stay quiet, say something, speak up. So that's the first thing I did, was speak up about it. And I kind of just had a created this roundtable meeting for artists and survivors, because I wanted to hear from the survivors as well, and start talking about kind of like the ugly truth of what's been going on. And I think a lot of people were afraid to speak up because they didn't want to be cast out or chastised for saying the negative truth, because it could affect people's money, it could affect their business. But we need a place to speak up because people are being harmed. So I
Yeah.
hosted these Zoom roundtables probably at the beginning of the year, and I just made a little post, and it kind of caught on with people I've never even heard of, like contacting me like, "Hey, can I be in this? Can I join this?" Body tattoo artists, breast cancer survivors, breast cancer advocates, PMU people, PMU students. Everyone from all walks of life came, and we started doing these monthly roundtable meetings just to kind of talk about it. Now, of course, it was a little bit of negative complaining about the problems, but as I'm doing this, I am documenting everything and I'm writing the problems. Like, okay, so the big thing was the training. A lot of people were complaining about the training, like it didn't really go into depth. I didn't have any support after. I kept feeling like I was in the dark. Okay, so the big problem is training. um with the survivors, they said, my doctor never told me I can go to a professional tattoo artist who knows how to tattoo scars. I trusted them with my surgery, and they said they do it here, so I trusted that they could do it, and I didn't know. So the thing is connecting with the doctors and showing them and kind of proving to them like, hey, we can do better work. You have a
Yeah.
beautiful reconstruction that you did on your patient, why not also do the best nipple tattoos that they can
Yeah.
have, and complete the process. So just
Yeah.
having that open discussion was a big part of it. So just like with anything, things kind of get covered up and not talked about, and they're in, and again, not to bash it, but the PMU industry, it's beauty geared, right? It's beauty oriented. We're working with medical and surgical clientele who have real serious conditions behind this. And respect to that, as well as understanding this is not just a beauty service. This is something where you have to have continued education and training and understanding how to tattoo scar tissue. understanding the body and what they've gone through, and also know that there could be complications, and do you know how to prepare for that? Connecting with medical professionals, surgical professionals, connecting with the survivors so the survivors are getting the right information. I can't tell you how many articles I've read in beauty magazines. They interviewed some PMU person trying to sell their own training and had wrong information about using PMU pigments only because they're sterile and more clean than tattoo inks, which is again a complete like not factual at all. And but this is what the survivors are reading. So how
Right.
would they know too? So it's three facets. Like informing the survivors, improving the training in PMU, and connecting and working together as a team in the medical field, I think, would be the biggest solutions that could make really important impacts and prevent the harm being done to survivors in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I really appreciate that you've taken the effort to like create an actual solution that people are actually involved in. You're actually trying to make a positive impact on this. You've actually put action behind it. And I really appreciate that about you. Now, I do just want to follow up and say, the way that she said PMU kind of sounded like we were discrediting the PMU field, which isn't what's happening. Because some of the best nipple tattooists in the world are PMU tattooists. However, there's some holes in the training. Like personally, I would like to see PMU training be 6 weeks to 6 months instead of just 6 days. And so in only 6 days, you can really only cover so much. And then of what's covered, you really only retain so much of it. So I would just like to see a longer training. That's kind of the solution I would like to offer for that. And we're not bashing anybody in that field. We're just kind of seeing this commonality and we're just speaking to it. And the solution is kind of more training like at the beginning, right? So anyways, that's thank you for offering a solution to that. And I would like to invite anybody. This is a open discussion. Nicole posts every time. So follow her, NMR Medical Tattoo on Instagram. She will post. If you want to be involved, send her your email. She will include you. And so lastly, to finish this up, who do you want to interview?
Yeah, so I'm gonna admit, like in the beginning of this career, like I stalked everybody. I stalked all these artists, and one of them was you, Stacie-Rae, of course. But I followed people who I really resonated with. More so, first thing I looked at the work, and then I looked at their energy behind the work. And I think it's a true tell. So I admire a lot of artists, and one of the big ones that stuck out to me was Christina from Living Story, because her story is interesting. Where she is a registered nurse working for a plastic surgery group, and was actually doing the bad nipple tattoos as we just talked. And she is very open about her story and her journey from recognizing that these tattoos are not good, and seeing that and finding her own solution to becoming better. So she'd probably be someone, again, as another medical worker. I would love to interview her and get to a little bit more about that whole story.
Awesome. All right. Well, Chrissy, looks like you're up next. You are on the docket. So
Yeah.
we are going to upload this to the YouTube channel. I will probably also put the audio file on my SoundCloud. And when we post the link to Facebook, guess who's getting tagged? Chrissy. So
Yay.
Chrissy, get ready for the same questions and start thinking about who you want to interview. And all of you out there who may be listening to this later on, hey, you might be next. Think about who you want to interview too. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.